Welcome to another episode of CN Talks. Today we are pleased to have with us Mr. Adam Dennett, CEO of SpecTec and Chair of the Society of Maritime Industries Digital Technology Group in the UK. As we know, AI adoption accelerates across the maritime sector, and right now we will discuss how shipping companies can integrate AI tools in a scalable and practical way. Why a one-size-fits-all approach may not work for the industry, and how digital technologies are reshaping fleet operations and predictive maintenance. Mr. Dennett, across the maritime industry, there is enormous excitement around AI right now. In your view, what are the biggest misconceptions companies still have when it comes to implementing AI within shipping operations?
Amazing, great question. And firstly, great to be here, and thank you for the invite. Looking forward to this conversation. And I think, the question you've hit with straight away is there is a real, and justified reason around, I think, that excitement around AI and in maritime and what this can do. And, I've been 2 years at SpecTec now, but prior to that, I've spent my career in technology. And for those that have been around a little bit longer as well, they will have experienced the internet coming in, wireless connectivity, Bitcoin. But ultimately, what we see AI is probably the largest technology shift that any of us have ever experienced in our lives, which for me can be scary, and it can be for a lot, but ultimately really exciting as well. And we've worked closely really with a number of companies at various stages of their digital journey. And I've also seen a handful of those misconceptions, I think, that you mentioned, that consistently play out, that can lead to that really slow progress and disappointment. And I think one of those is where people will treat AI as the starting point. So there's a lot of companies say we need to do AI, but they don't really know why and what they're trying to do. And a challenge with applying technology like AI can be around the data that can be obviously deeply siloed in shipping, which can be historic due to connectivity. And I know we'll talk about that a bit later as well. But when systems don't talk to each other, if you don't have that foundation of standardizing interoperable data, the limited potential you can get from just applying AI solutions will be limited ultimately. So that's really a step that people need to look at first before they just simply jump into AI solutions, is understanding their data frameworks, where they have data, how systems talk. And then the other real misconception is probably that volume of activity equals progress. The whole market is very busy looking at these solutions, but there were some interesting stats from, I saw at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They stated that 95% of Gen AI pilots actually failed to deliver impact. And I think Gartner was producing similar stats, basically saying that 40% of AI projects, agentic AI projects, will fail by 2027. And that's not because AI doesn't work. AI has huge potential, but ultimately people are applying the wrong technology to play the wrong shape of technology to the wrong problem, or trying to do it alone, or simply working with organizations that don't really understand the industry and their ways of working as well. So they're probably a couple of the big misconceptions, I think.
Okay, thank you so much for those insights. Right now, as we know, the maritime industry includes operators with very different fleet sizes, operational requirements, and levels of digital maturity. In your view, how should companies evaluate which AI tools fit their specific operational needs?
So when you're looking at that, the thing I would always stress, and I think it's been common since I've been working in tech, is that always start with the problem, not the technology. So most companies that get the most out of AI, they start with a specific operational pain point, and then they work backwards towards them finding or building the right solution. And critically, we'd always advise, don't try and do this alone as well. So partner with solutions providers, share your problems honestly. And the best conversations that I have with customers are when we start with, here is what is broken in our operation, or this is the problem we're trying to solve. not they come to you saying, oh, here's the AI feature I want to buy. Because I think when you look at those problems, some problems just need automation. They might be a rule-based, repeatable process that doesn't need AI, just needs automation. Some might need surfaced insight where AI can do that heavy lifting on the data and the human can still make the decision. Some can then apply that true agentic capability, and that's where the system can take action across multiple systems on behalf of an operator. And then some, technologies are also about changing how people interact with systems entirely as well. So being able to use the likes of natural language instead of clicks and menus. So ultimately a port captain, a superintendent can ask a question and get an answer in their own words. So, I think when they're looking at what tools they evaluate, I think really do focus on that problem. And sometimes that problem and the most near-term opportunities aren't necessarily the most glamorous ones or feel exciting. They're generally where you've got high volume, resource intensive and like low value tasks that really tie up your experienced team and qualified people, seafarers, shore professionals doing work that they shouldn't be doing. So the big area we found recently is around like manual invoice matching, reconciling spare part records that carry different names across vessels, chasing purchase orders, rekeying data between systems. And it's those areas where I would look to like deploy AI first, because every hour that you get back can then be given back to those really qualified and professional individuals to do the work where they add real value. And that's an area where we've built Amos Procure Smart, which is really going to help attack that challenge operators have. And then predictive maintenance, that's the other real clear opportunity, because given the fleet is at its average oldest age that it's been in 40 years, older assets, regardless of their segment or fleet that they operate, they generally have higher insurance claims, they're prone to more safety risks, more parts failures. So being able to shift from that time to condition-based maintenance is where really then AI can really help analyze that data across thousands, if not millions of data points, and really guide the operators in the right way. So in both cases, it's that partnership matters as much as the technologies as well.
All right, so there are many factors that need to evaluate the AI tools, as I understand. All right, thank you. To move on, as we know, SpecTec operates heavily in the area of asset and the maintenance management through the Amos platform. How do you see, as we talked also before, AI reshaping predictive maintenance, as you mentioned before, over the next 5 years, specifically for vessel operators looking to reduce downtime and improve reliability?
Yeah, amazing. And I think, completely referenced the previous point. And I think the way AI is really going to help is around the predictive maintenance algorithms, so the data points and how it makes the decision and the understanding that it has. You'll also see that assisted like digital twin modeling, which we hear talked around a lot as well. And then failure mode and effects analysis, which it really helps for that proactive risk mitigation. So what the AI tooling can then ultimately do is detect anomalies, easy for me to say, anomalies in engine performance, forecast component, where it can also then allow procurement systems to like automatically initiate replacement orders and then let inventory platforms track usage trends, optimize stock levels. So for me, and I think it links to what you mentioned around like downtime, for container operators specifically, the value is not just in maintenance cost, which it can have a huge benefit in, but it's that schedule integrity, because unplanned downtime in any container service it's a missed berth window, that missed transshipment, contractual penalties. So AI's contribution over the next 5 years, and I think we'll see it a lot sooner than 5 years. I think the tech landscape is moving at such a pace. 3 to 5 years is becoming what's happening in the next 18 months. But the key benefit will be around making schedules more reliable and not just engines more durable. And that same standardized data foundation then is needed and applied. So as models become more sophisticated and process more operational data, the recommendations will get sharper with time, and the applications then can spread further across the business. So where this can get, I think, really neat is when data sharing is enabled as well between operators, which is a barrier that we would need to cross. But for example, if an operator can benchmark their same components across sister ships that they may own, but also other operators may own worldwide, you can then have that performance pattern data sit across like fleet-wide evidence bases and sort of worldwide evidence bases rather than just your operation. So I think for those sort of mid-tier operators as well, where they might have 10, 15 vessels, being able to compare your parts across 1,000 vessels, 3,000 vessels, will enable you to make a lot more better decisions as well. So you can make better maintenance calls, earlier sight of like systemic issues, and really put you in a stronger position with OEMs as well.
All right, that's so important. All right. Right now, your latest model, Amos X, represents a major step in SpecTech's digital evolution. What were the key industry challenges or operational gaps you aim to address through this next generation platform?
Yeah, so we're aiming it now sort of the unified Amos platform, and really the core gap that it addresses is fragmentation across systems. So we didn't introduce just new technology for its own sake. The aim was really building something rooted in that operational reality across maintenance, inventory, procurement, and QSHE as well, which have historically lived in separate systems. So when a component might be flagged for replacement, the maintenance team know, but procurement don't, and say the inventory then may not reflect what's actually on board. So the unified Amos platform really brings all of that together into a single interoperable environment. So that information flows automatically, and then the right action follows the right insight, and really reduces manual human intervention, which was just tying up people unnecessary. And we've also really designed it for the operational reality our customers work in end to end. So, shipping has probably spent 30 years building software for either the back office specifically, but we've really built it for both back office, the technical team, procurement, finance functions, the bridge, all in one platform. So it's a human first and device agnostic in terms of how you can use it. So a superintendent can be at a desk, a buyer can be on a tablet, an engineer can be on the phone at sea, but they all get an experience that's optimized for where they are and what they're trying to do. Because we know when applying any or introducing any new tech platforms, adoption is where most platforms fail. So that's why that usability element of the platform for us is really non-negotiable. And that interface matters just as much as the algorithms and the functionality available. So it's multilingual by default to reflect the reality of a global workforce. It's responsive on whatever device is in front of them. And it's really designed to guide work in the moment rather than just capture it after the fact. So the shift is from that system of record to a system of understanding. So the software has more context and validates data it holds, and then that can really help those shore and those ship teams make the next decision a lot easier.
All right, okay. So Amos, previous Amos and Amos X are communicating, as we can say, or something different, as I understand.
Yeah, so it's bringing the platform together as one, breaking down the silos between data points, and it's allowing, and it's in a obviously a lot newer technology, a lot better in terms of user face. It's usable. So, we know crews changing a lot these days. So you need a seafarer to walk on board and to know how to use the platform. So it's really intuitive as well. And then the value that adds just multiplies to the operators.
Okay, thank you for this. One challenge that frequently discussed in maritime digitalization is fragmented and inconsistent data. How critical is the data standardization before companies can truly unlock the value of AI and advanced analytics?
extremely like critical and important. Like it's so key because if you have data that's not interoperable or it's in separate places, then you're ultimately asking sort of AI to be able to interpret data points in silos. So it doesn't have the full picture. Therefore, it's like you making a decision on one piece of data rather than three. So like if that was exposed to you, you could probably make a better decision. So yeah, if you simply apply AI to just procurement in isolation, it's probably not going to add as much value as it could if it had exposure to all of the other areas. And we did some recent research there was 20 fleet operators that represented more than 3,000 vessels, and we dug into some of the procurement processes, and they were still managing thousands of RFQs, purchase orders, invoices, spare part requests, all manually. And you sort of discovered that the same component can carry 12 to 20 different names across the fleet. So it's the same thing, but people just refer to it differently. And invoice matching failure rates were exceeding like 60%. So, that was just one example of that's, just data that's being recorded differently. So it's not standardized in one system, never mind the silo barriers that we have. So I would really say to sort of any owner that's watching this is that solving that data problem is your like biggest opportunity. And shipping's really talked about cleaning up its data for the last 15 years and probably never has really found the business case to do it. But AI is that business case and can really help here as well. So it's not just about the AI tool, but you can use AI to help you clean up that data problem as well. And I think once you get that foundation in place, you standardize your components, unify your maintenance and procurement records, get that one version of a truth across your fleet, that will then enable you to unlock more of that capability that comes to life, definitely. And I think, once you give AI that sort of guide and access to what it needs and the data is in that place and you automate stuff, AI can start to become more of a talent within your organization than just a simple add-on tool. It can start to drive decisions for you as well.
All right. Okay, I understand. This is so important about data. Smaller ship owners and operators often worry that AI innovation is designed for large global fleets. Do you believe that scalable AI solutions are becoming more accessible for smaller operators as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if we, some of those bigger operators can have more resilience to obviously fluctuating market demands, price changes, etc. But, margins are tight across shipping across the board. So it can really hurt those smaller operators more than ever. And generally, you'll find those small ship owners operating across multiple regulated jurisdictions. They're doing diverse trade routes, and they don't always have those in-house capabilities as well that a bigger owner might have. So, we sort of say that segment of the market within 10 to 20 vessel range, that's that's also where the majority of the industry sits. And they really need solutions that are built for their needs, not scaled down versions of enterprise tools. And I think we are seeing with AI is very sort of becoming more price competitive in the market as well, which is great. And I think where their advantage is they are generally able to deploy tools much faster. So we're seeing more of an appetite from that segment to adopt digital solutions, to engage in discovery, to co-create and build with us. And we're really proactively supporting them as much as we can by sort of lowering barriers of adoption and offering solutions that fit their needs. So we've recently sort of changed our packaging structure in terms of how we offer our services, and we've created sort of 3 tiers of packaging. So we have a gateway package, horizon package, and then enterprise. So we can give access to those sort of smaller tier users to the same level of functionality, to the same benefits of what the system can offer, but suited for them. So I think we're seeing more of that come to light, and with web technologies and more SaaS models, it's easier to deploy technology than it might have previously been for that smaller operator.
All right. Smaller can adopt AI, as I understand.
Apologies, I just lost you there. I don't know if it was my connection or not, so I
All
didn't
right.
hear the question.
Okay. I said that the bigger operators maybe have bigger capabilities or other capabilities, but also smaller operators have the capability to adopt AI, as I understand.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
100%. Anything they can generally move faster and can be more agile because they can, move the sort of the tanker around a lot quicker.
Okay. Um, Right now, as the chair of the Society of Maritime Industries Digital Technology Group, you have visibility across the wider maritime technology ecosystem. Which areas of maritime operations do you believe are currently seeing the most practical and measurable benefits from AI adoption?
Oh, good question. And it's sort of I have like my SMI hat on, and we're also part of a global group of vertical companies as well, more than 1,100. So I've got the maritime experience. I can also dig into like healthcare, local government, logistics, and I think what I've really seen is I think there's areas where I think maritime is ahead. There's also areas where we're behind. One of the key enabling factors is those industries that have better data standards across the board. So I think that enables them people to get practical benefits is what I've seen. Companies that will really start small, they learn in public and they ultimately scale what works. But I think the ones who really struggle or don't see those benefits are ones that really try and buy their way out of a problem. But some of the key things we've seen with where the data foundations really are mature enough to support real models, we've seen sort of AI assisted pilotage and bridge decision support is one of those. Sort of port call optimizations, berth scheduling, voyage planning, that's definitely another. You've also got real fuel emissions, sort of then scheduling integrity and the numbers behind it, and also insurance claims, like analytics as well. So that quantifiable loss reduction starting to show up in sort of operator and underwriter conversations. And then for us, the biggest benefits we see is the world that we're in is really that predictive maintenance and managing that full asset life cycle, which really sits firmly within the group. And I think with the age profile of the fleet, that's been the area that I've definitely seen the most benefit. Our customers have seen and experienced and operators through the board. And what really these have in common is not necessarily it's the algorithm, but it's the underlying data is in a good enough state and standardized that it can be really utilized. So I think one thing to talk about, I think, as AI is obviously being leveraged and more tech, is that cyber resilience alongside the use of more digital tools is really important, and we need to make sure that they really advance together, because one without the other can create vulnerabilities. So that's really a sort of a change management challenge, and it really belongs at the board level, not just your IT department. So it's just really making sure you are leaning into the adoption, the innovation, but just the exposure risk is probably a key part to make sure you've got in the back of your mind.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for this. There is an increasing discussion around connecting maintenance systems, voyage data, and operational analytics into one ecosystem. How important is interoperability between platforms in building the next generation of smart fleet operations?
Yeah, for me, that interoperability is vital across the platforms, because we're really experiencing significant regulatory operational change at the same time. So we know compliance frameworks, they're raising the bar on documentation, process consistency. You've got like ESG and emission obligations under Fuel EU, EU ETS, and they're really creating that pressure on data quality, traceability across fleets. And as organizations grow in size and complexity, that cost and the impact of having systems that are fragmented and not interoperable really compounds really quickly, because if you're an organization, you need to run as one organization, and therefore really the platforms that you rely on need to behave in the same way. So they need to speak in one consistent voice, in a language across both asset, voyage, procurement, finance, and crew. So that opportunity is really to get that interoperability right, which will then give you that transparency across the business. And then if you're using shared data, you can then drive ultimately better, faster decisions on the things that actually matter across sort of your safety, reliability, scheduling, integrity, and cost. So the wider technology world has really already settled this argument. So we can see the platforms that win right now are the ones that open doors to their applications via APIs, not closing it. So, outside of sort of Maritime, you've got Anthropic and Microsoft, and they're leading sort of cloud and AI providers. They're deliberately making it interoperable and deliberately open, because the value really sits in the value to the customer sits in what they can connect to, not what they're locked into. So maritime vendors that try and build walls around their data, or they pull up the drawbridge, they're going to find themselves on the wrong side of that shift quickly. So customers won't accept it, nor will they buy it. So that connectivity sort of tissue is where the next wave of value sits. So compliance reporting, I think, is forcing operators to really bring asset, voyage, and sort of fuel data into one place. And then when you bring all of that data into one place in one language, you have platforms talking to each other. That's where the magic can happen in terms of the value that those operators could unlock.
All right. So as I understand, connectivity is the key across the platforms. All right.
100%. So you get that one single view of your vessel or your operation, and then you can make the best decisions, because otherwise if it sits in silos, you'll never be able to make the right probably decision all the time.
All right. As we know, shipping has traditionally been cautious when adopting new technologies. Do you think the industry's attitude toward AI is now changing, especially as operators face pressure around efficiency, costs, and compliance?
100%. We've definitely seen the attitude changing, I think, and the uptake of technologies and people willing to try stuff. And I think, we've probably seen it all, and I imagine, yourself as well, like we're using these tools in our daily lives, like personally. So, ChatGPT, other tools, they'll help me do my weekly shop. They'll help me plan meals. So when you see the value those tools bring to you personally, I think then there can be that more willingness to use them in business. Sometimes we've seen technology as just a business problem, but I think we're more open to that. So really that hype and that awareness is real now. So then industrial applications of that technology are really that natural progression. And as you say, tightening cost control, margins, volatility in the market means that you've got to be using the best technology to solve your problems, so you get that competitive edge and you can have that competitive advantage. So, it's still fair to say I think shipping is a risk-averse industry, and the stakes are high for ship owners and operators, because you can't afford to put lives and assets at risk due to an AI-driven error or decision. So AI's role, as we see it, definitely in maritime, is to support and complement, and we often talk about augmenting human decision making, not replacing it. So always keeping that human in the loop, and I think making sure you are really clear and have auditable traceability of what the AI is doing, and us as technology providers are able to articulate that to the operators. They can see it. I think that gives them more confidence to adopt. I think when they just say, the AI has made that decision, don't worry about it, that can be a bit risky. But we're definitely seeing more of an uptake in terms of adoption of newer tech.
Okay, so it's really positive to hearing that we are taking steps toward, and it's important that operators see the benefits of AI, and right now they are not so cautious about adopting AI platforms or anything else about this. All right. AI is often discussed as a tool for automation, but you also emphasize the importance of human-first technology. How should maritime companies balance automation with the experience and decision-making of onboard crews and shore teams?
Yeah, so I think really the goal when we look at it is really using AI technology and tools is to really give experienced crews and shore teams sharper and like faster insights so they can make decisions that are better informed, but it's not to take it out of the human hands entirely. Technology that I think removes people from the loop too quickly will create new risks in an industry, especially where conditions are complex, they're dynamic, and they're often unpredictable in the maritime world. So technology crews do not trust. I think they're not using that tool day in, day out. They don't understand the framework, and we don't bring people on that journey, then you won't see adoption come through it. So for me, I think automation really earns its place when it's brought in incrementally. So it's brought in over time. It's not a full automation of a workflow, but you start to do it step by step. And you really start by taking away those high volume, repetitive tasks, which starts to give people trust in what the system is doing. And then the human expertise is really reserved for them where it genuinely matters most, where they need to make a decision or approve a decision that the AI might have made. And that really same principle applies to the relationship between operators and their technology partners. So, technology that is bought to a brief never quite fit. It's about making sure you build that in partnership. So sharing your real pain points and the providers, it's like how you build it in a human way. That's what actually transforms that process. So we treat our customers as collaborators, they're not buyers, but that's how you really go from pilot to production. And I was at Coastlink, I think it was last week, and the same theme was coming up again, and it was around sort of if you just force technology adoption on people, it will never end in success. You've really got to show and prove the value and bring the people in, bring the operational teams in the co-creation of the software as well as the utilization of it. And if the technology is as good as you say it is, you'll generally find that people will adopt it and use it. So it's just making sure we always have that balance and we never lose sight of the value that the human mind and human judgment can really bring to the decisions that, the seafarers and the crew worldwide are making every day.
Okay, all right. So balance is the key, we can say.
100%.
All right. Looking ahead right now, what do you believe will separate the maritime organizations that successfully scale AI integration from those that struggle to move beyond experimentation and pilot projects?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to my point at the start around it's really important that you start with the problem and not the technology. So what problem are you trying to solve? And also another key part is making sure as a business that you run them as like business transformations, not simply an IT project. So we often see that barrier in larger operators where you have operational teams and IT teams and they don't necessarily align. So companies that will be able to scale will probably do four things. I think they'll start with that clear operational problem, not just a tool. They'll co-create and work collaboratively with the solutions providers, sharing what's broken and what the solutions they'd like to see. I think it's matching the right shape of technology to the problem. So is it automation that's needed? Is it AI? Is it a natural language interface? Is it a mix of those? And then the other part is really treating decisions as two-way doors as well. A lot of people make decisions on IT in a fear that they can never revert back. So you might be able to just try and see if it proves, and then always know that you should be able to reverse those decisions and build that option in at the start. I think companies that will struggle are ones that really want complete certainty before they commit. Because if you're trying to get to that, everything is 100% accurate is probably going to be challenging. So you're going to have to try with some degree of risk and tolerance as long as you understand what that risk is. But I think, the other ones that may struggle are ones that don't look at it as it's a cultural shift and it's a leadership shift as well as it is a technology one. People are scared by this. We've been applying AI tools in our work and, people can be fearful of, is it going to replace me? What does that mean? And getting people bought in. So, no one's an expert in this, I would say. So it's being able to just share with humility, to have an open conversation, be willing to try, to be willing to fail as well sometimes. I think that's really important. because that's just really key on being able to then take projects, pilot willingly, not running a culture of fear, being able to sort of move that forward. But I think really the final piece is that AI can allow you probably to move at a faster pace, be able to deploy more technology, but we can never replace what good tech does, and usability is a key thing. So you can have the best product in the world, but if it's not usable, people aren't going to use it and it won't get used. So really making sure that solutions are really well designed, they're intuitive on the device that the user has in front of them, they're quick, they're available in the language that they want to work in, and they're really useful, and that person can see that use in the next 10 minutes of their day. So people will pull good technology into their workflow. People will always find a route around bad technology when it's applied. So no matter how clever that model is underneath it, if it ain't easy to use, people will find a way not to use it. Whereas if the software makes a difference, people will be willing to use it. And that's really important. So the vendors really that will win in the next 5 years will be the ones that treat that ease of use as a first class sort of engineering discipline, and not just sort of a UX polish at the end fundamentally.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks so much for this perspective. And now I believe that we have fully covered the key topics. But do you think, is there anything you would like to add or highlight that we didn't mention?
No, I think it's been a really good conversation topics, and there's a lot of time, there's questions here that people sometimes aren't willing to ask in terms of like, well, how would we scale it? How do we know it's going to work? But I think it's just really important that we're all humans, so just having those open conversations, willing to connect. I think this industry, from what I've seen in other industries, there's so much potential here to get this right for the benefit of so many operators around the world, and ultimately help the seafarers in particular, and those crew on board those vessels. And never forget that we talk around human in the loop. These are people, they have identities, and it's around how we make their lives easier and deliver real value for the industry. But no, it's been a good conversation and some good questions, and thank you once again for the invite.
Thank you so much for your time, for your insights, perspectives. Thank you so much. And I hope we can talk soon for anything latest news.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Always happy to help and support, and maybe see you in Posidonia.